Okay.
Okay. MBT Book Club, chapters 29 and 30, book 1. And our intention is to really create a safe space for us to open up and learn, ask questions, and understand this material through our engagement, our interaction with each other. So we really just focus on compassion and acceptance for each other, seek to understand. There's no judgment or criticism, just love and acceptance. And yeah, let's go around and do a check-in and see what everybody thought of this material. Who wants to start?
Top of the morning to you all. Hey, good to see you. Good to be seen. A wonderful, lovely Saturday morning, isn't it?
It is.
All right, the evolution of, the birth of time. Reminds me of the Pink Floyd song, Time. With all the ticking and the bells ringing and whatnot, right?
And then the alarm clock goes off.
Wake up! So I read this about 1.5 years ago and skimmed over it broadly. And it's interesting to think about how time is really fluid. You know, it's not that it does or doesn't exist. It's a reality. It just kind of had me thinking about some of the things I've experienced and how it can be stretched or compressed based on perception or even the reality system you're in. So, it's good.
Very cool. Ken, what do you think?
Oh, is it me? Sorry. Well, I didn't have any deep thoughts on this. I guess for me, it just, because we're so used to time, it's interesting to look at how he says it starts, but I guess it's just such an accepted part of my reality that I don't think about it a lot. It just is. So anyway, and then when in the second chapter, when he talks about it evolving into the AUM, so that's interesting. Anyway, so we'll gain some better insights this morning.
Nice. And Bojana, how about you?
Here, I found both chapters rather difficult concepts to, figure out in my head and to understand really how it works. So I'm hoping that I maybe will get better clarity by talking it over with you guys.
Yeah,
absolutely, for sure.
For me, when Tom talked about time, I thought, what do you mean there's no such thing as time? And I realized the way he described it is in a pattern of ups and downs, or it's in that pattern, I guess. He defines that as time. That makes more sense.
Yeah, some kind of pattern there, even if it changes. Yeah, the atoms have to circle every so often. So decisions before, after.
Yeah.
And for me, I think I also found some of it, like the detail, quite tricky, but I just kept on trying to tell myself I don't really need to get every detail, but that the big point, I think, well, I don't know, but the thing I took away from it was that this is just more of the evolution complexity, that, there's this drive to self-improvement, and in order for the AUO to improve to the point where, he's now saying it's so sophisticated he has to call it something else, but that, the drive for self-improvement is what's driving the AUO to just develop more and more sophisticated organizational constructs so that it can self-improve. So I just kept on coming back to that as my touchstone when I got lost in the detail. And then the other thing that really struck me, I don't know why, it just kind of bounced on the page for me, was this whole notion of how important because of the acceleration of technology, how important wisdom is.
Yeah.
That was kind of terrifying. So those are my big two takeaways.
Nice. Yeah.
Did you say, Sylvia?
What's that?
Did you say terrifying?
Well, the whole wisdom thing, yeah, I did. Yeah, that's right. It's a
Yeah.
little terrifying, yeah, because
Yeah.
basically be wise or self-destruct. You know, it's like, oh no.
Right. Yeah. I hear you. Technology is a trip, and it's just moving so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember reading that and thinking that it could definitely be very scary. It could, depending on which way it goes. But then I found solace in when he talked about, well, you know, if it all does go to kind of shit in a handbasket, then we can basically just save the quality of consciousness we've earned and then use that in a different reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, even if the forms, the physical disappears from sight completely, the consciousness survives, right? The evolution that we've...
Yeah, the quality we've gained so far will go on.
Yeah, we can pack up and go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all for nothing.
Hit the reset button.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for me it was great to get back on track because last time I didn't even read the chapter, so it was nice to get back into it again. And I know that oftentimes you hear time is an illusion. Like Einstein, somebody quoted Einstein for saying time is an illusion. I don't know how true that is. So I liked reading this and understanding that time is actually fundamental. So we need time in order to evolve. We have to have two different states.
Yeah, goes hand in hand with decisions and consciousness and before and after.
Yeah, because in the spiritual community, you often hear like, no, there is no such thing as time. It's all in the now. It's right here. It's right now. It's like, well, no, you need to be able to learn and grow, and so there has to be a past, and there has to be a future that we can grow into.
Yeah. There is a tangible reality to it. It has to exist. It's fluid, though. It's not as not as stiff as we would think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So why don't we dive in? Chapter 29, Evolution of AUO. Do you guys have anything there on the first page?
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe somebody can clarify this for me. At the very beginning of the chapter, I can see the sentence: these regularly oscillating reality cells become AUO's clock. Like a metronome. No. They keep time for everything else. Can somebody just dive into it and explain it to me what it means? What are those reality cells that become AUO's clock?
Who wants to take a stab at explaining that?
Well, I could say what I've thought of that. I really don't feel like I understand it. But my guess was that at some stage he was saying that different cells take on different qualities. You know, it's almost like the body developed a liver to do one thing and a kidney to do another. And so there was a group of cells that kind of took on that job. But I don't know. That feels like a real guess. That's what I decided in my own mind that it meant.
I think that's the same perception I had of it, and we just have to remember that this is not all. He's using. Well, no, I can't think of that word, but
Metaphor.
Huh?
Metaphor. It's just
he's just using metaphors to help us to understand. And so, whether there was really a group of cells that did that or not is irrelevant. He's just trying to get us to say a part of it became the timekeeper.
That's it. I think that's the key word, the timekeeper.
Yeah.
But the timekeeper has to be in a uniform pattern, like the metronome where it goes tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah.
And so it keeps everyone in sync.
Time has to be constant in order to work efficiently.
Yeah.
If it's fast one day and then slow the next, then
you can't reference it from one point to the next point.
Right.
And so that this version is like the fundamental clock, like AUO's fundamental clock, the big clock that keeps time for all other realities. So this is there's one clock, and then everybody else kind of works off that clock. So there, it's also been said too that, you know, in the larger consciousness system, things happen really, really fast, and what's happening here is like slow motion compared to what's happening there, because that's where the original clock is, the fundamental clock. And so things in LCS or AUO can come here and kind of manipulate or change things if it needs to, and we won't even notice anything that's happening because it's operating on such a fast clock. Does that make sense? No.
Further down the books, he'll talk about O's time and our and different realities time. So, for example, our time may like 1 second, in the LCS clock, it may take it might have 1 million cycles for one of our cycles. So they can run much faster when it comes here, whatever they've done to us, we wouldn't even see it.
So basically, he's saying different realities have the ability to have different time speeds. You know, speed of time.
Intervals.
So we're because we're in a physical state, we tend to be on a slower clock, where the AUO has a really fast clock. Everybody else's clock compared to AUO is somewhat slower at different rates of slowness as well. But I think the overall thing for this chapter is just this is where time began, the difference between before and after. And however you need to internalize the birth of time is really probably more the fundamental part of this.
Right. What's that movie where, is it Inception or something like that? Where there's
Inception.
Yeah, where a person goes back into a visual, like a dream, and goes back to a different reality, and that person's living in a different, slower time frame, I think it was.
Oh yeah. And
then they had
to go down a dream within a dream within.
Yeah, exactly.
Becomes exponentially modified.
Yeah.
Whether it was slower or faster escapes me right now, but
yeah,
they get to be 3-4 levels deep, where something way down, dream within a dream within a dream within a dream, is 4 times or 44 times as fast. Something like that.
Yeah, or whatever it was. But then they had to go to that reality to change things in the current reality.
Yeah. So basically, Bojana, I feel like what it's saying is that so time is fundamental. AUO had to create time, and it created time. And he's giving, like Suzanne was saying, this metaphor of this group of reality cells, a group of its fundamental nature, reality cells. He says it was assigned this task of creating time. So that's all this one group does, is creates time. This is the basic fundamental clock in AUO. Time was created.
Okay, well, let's go from there.
So in the second paragraph I had highlighted there, time separates the before state from the after state. Change creates the notion of time. Awareness of change necessitates the idea of personal time. So I don't know, that just gave me further insight into the notion of time, that really just you have to have a before and an after state in order to have time. That's what time is, before or after.
Yep, that's all that we're looking at so far.
Yeah.
Initially.
So how about anything over on the next page on 240?
I've got a little something in the second paragraph that starts pseudo-knowledge. And then down in that paragraph a little bit, bracketed, appreciating your limitations is the first step toward obtaining wisdom. At the same time, creating apparent limitations where none actually exist by getting stuck in belief traps is a great waste of potential.
Yeah, I had that too.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I thought that was monumental and a good reminder or something to maintain awareness of is, am I getting stuck in any thought process, thinking pattern, or belief, and to be aware of that. And if I, find myself having a repetitive thought over and over, just, maintain or come up with the best conclusion I've got, set it aside, and move on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Just broad on it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, what does that line mean to you guys? Appreciating your limitations is the first step toward obtaining wisdom. I feel like you said that in the book before too.
I mean, for me, it's just because he says this more than once. It's just some things you're not supposed to know the answer to, and just say, and realizing that, because he talks about that in the paragraph above, like some things we'll never know, accept it, move on, and go do what you have the ability to do. But knowing the answer to every single thing is not ever going to be possible. So accepting that limitation up front, and then I guess wisdom becomes, figuring out where you're not going to know the answer to something versus limitations that you can overcome, and where you can make improvements to yourself. I mean, that's what it says to me.
Yeah, for me, it's acknowledge where you are. Just don't get too stuck in the details. And as you dive deeper, like what we're doing right now, your limitations starts to get bigger, or not bigger, but you let go of some limitations, and therefore your beliefs or your understanding, your knowledge, your wisdom grows.
Yeah.
Yep, keep growing, don't get stuck.
And he sums it up nicely at the end of this paragraph, saying that the ability to accurately assess the one's fundamental limitations differentiates the wise from the foolish.
Right? Yeah, I had that highlighted
It's
too.
good to understand that.
So,
Right.
on a personal level, my limitations are my fear and my ego. When I have my fear and my ego in place, it limits me from being able to open up and see a different perspective or a bigger perspective. I'm so narrowly focused in on me, myself, and I, which is all my ego, right? So once I can get rid of that ego, get rid of the fear that in fact creates the ego, then I can open up. And so that's one thing that's stopping me is my fear and ego. And he says, at the same time, creating apparent limitations where none actually exist by getting stuck in belief traps is a great waste of potential. So apparent limitations. I think, apparent limitations then again for me would be fear, because he often talks about how fear is just a paper tiger.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think I have this fear of, an inadequacy, not being good enough, really that's not a fear. It's just this idea that I have, but I need to just abolish that because I am good enough. It's just my limited mind that tells me that I'm not good enough. So it's kind of this like catch-22,
Right.
It's like I have it, but yet it's not real. So it's like, how do you get rid of it? And I feel like the first thing, he says here is appreciation. Okay, so I have it. It's here. It's existing. And so I have to acknowledge it, own it, not project it onto other people, but really do the work that I need to do to overcome that fear.
Couldn't limitations also be due to the fact that you only know what you know, and therefore that it creates a boundary, whereas if you went to explore the unknown, your limitations grows, or your limitation gets broken down, and you get to know more.
I guess I was reading this in conjunction with the paragraph before, because he's talking about, like where did the origins of the first biological cells with, it's like it doesn't matter. We're never going to know. And just accepting the things
Go
that
ask your
we
mother, right?
never know. And everything else, when you can figure out that stuff, everything else becomes an apparent limitation.
Mm-hmm.
You do have the ability to grow and have your awareness grow and overcome those things. But there are some areas that we will just never know the answer to, like where did, all the steps, like he's giving us a metaphor, but is that really happened? Is that the way it really happened? We don't know. We're never going to know.
Exactly. I love how he keeps asking, go ask your mother. He says, go ask your mother.
Yeah. It's not an appropriate question.
Exactly.
Like, don't waste your time on that. It doesn't matter. You're not going to know.
Yeah.
Focus on what you can do.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and watch out for the ego, that you don't think you're so big or intelligent that you know everything. Be aware of your possible or your real limitations.
I remember Tom once saying that when you read the book, like what you're ready for that moment will stick out to you, and the other stuff you will barely even see it.
Mhm.
So maybe, if there's something that doesn't speak to you, or it feels like, like I don't get that, or I don't see it, maybe it's time to just go la 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 and breathe past it, and read it again in 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be like a whole new book.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I certainly feel like a real beginner, and so I just feel like, in fact, my son had said, my older son is reading the book now, and he's like, Mom, I just got through all the prefaces. I can only do 3 pages at a time. It's just too much. And actually, that's much wiser than the way I read it the first time, which was like, read the whole thing in 2 weeks and retain nothing. But yeah, so I went back and reread the preface. I was like, gosh, I remember it was long, but I don't remember anything he said. So I went back and just reread just the preface. And I was like, wow, like even just having gone through this process with you guys, the preface means more to me now than it did when we first read it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think if you can get through this book at all, that you're an impressive person. Kudos to you for even thinking about bigger picture stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I know we've looked at this concept a lot. I just want to ask though, before we move on, what do you think he means by when he says creating apparent limitations where none actually exist? Or what does that mean to you? Apparent limitations.
I think that's where we start building our fear and letting our ego run. Those are apparent limitations. When you become fearful and, I can't do that, or that's too much for me. That's beyond me. I'll never be able to do that. Those are the apparent limitations.
Yeah.
That we've set upon ourselves.
Yeah. There are beliefs, I think, for me.
Yeah. Belief traps. Yeah. And then also the belief that I am a human being and that's all I am. That there's nothing more to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, I mean, because if I understand that I'm actually consciousness and I'm part of Om, then that opens me up to explore so much more than this limited reality.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Yeah, and he talks about that too more in here. So let's get to it. What about anything else on that page?
The last sentence in the 3rd paragraph. Time acts as a catalyst agent. It dramatically enhances Au's ability and self-organize, thus speeding up the interactions between the fundamental process and consciousness. So how we're learning and growing is just creates a better way for us to learn and grow.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, and actually, in that same vein, then the last sentence on the page sort of also then hints that communication between the cells is the same thing. It's like another thing that's going to help AUO organize and evolve. Yeah, it says coordinated activity can both propagate and regulate patterns of content. Signals and messages can be passed from cell to cell as fast as one cell can change state in response to an adjacent cell changing state. patterns in code, meaning as our patterns of neurons, letters, and words, gestures, or sounds do, soon AUO has parts of itself communicating and sharing data with other parts.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's kind of the same thing. What Daniel just said about time, I think it goes also to this, communication or sharing data point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that. Over on the next page, 241. So in the aside there, I had, I don't know, it's like the third or fourth sentence highlighted. He's talking about the central nervous system and how it limits our consciousness and what we can perceive. It talks about how our central nervous system it serves as a constraint upon the data stream that defines the virtual experience of this virtual physical body within the mind of the individuated non-physical consciousness that in turn defines your existence and motivates your intent within the larger reality. So that was important to me just because, again, I've talked about this before, is that the central nervous system, that's one thing that we can really influence. And it's important for me to really make my central nervous system as best as it possibly can be, because it's the main constraint of this data stream and how I interpret my reality. And then, as he says, and then also motivates your intent within the larger reality. So I'm giving up sugar on Monday. Woohoo!
Good luck.
I think, yeah, that's really going to help with my brain function. And I'm just stating it now so that you guys can all hold me accountable. But
There you go.
yeah, have the sugar-free going.
All right, let's see how you do next Saturday.
That's right. Yeah. Anything else on that page?
Nope.
The only other thing, it's another, how he sort of says things in different ways. It's kind of what you just said, but it also just talks about how the central nervous system is the interface between the perception of this is on the second paragraph of that aside, like second sentence, I think, third sentence. Because the CNS evolved to be the interface between the perception of physical experience and the consciousness of the perceiver that it hosts, it's reasonable to expect the communications technology on both sides, physical and non-physical, of the interface to be highly compatible. So that just, I kind of went like that, it's sort of the other, it's saying what you just said, but in another way, like this is the bridge, which I thought was, yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because we neglect it, right? I don't know, we just kind of let it run on autopilot, and we feel like we're not victim to, but it's just like, oh, these are the cards I've been dealt. Like this is how my avatar is. But we have so much influence over our avatar, like just based on how we treat our body and how we treat our brain, and how if we choose to exercise our neurons and nerves and rewire, it's all up to us. Like we have all that control, and yet we don't really, I don't know, we don't apply that much effort towards doing so. But it's important that we do. And that's why I love Tom, because he leads by example in that, he is sugar-free, he's vegan, he exercises, he's sharp, he's like, it's just such a role model to aspire to be like, and yet not very many of us do that.
And he doesn't drink, he doesn't drink any alcohol either, right?
No,
No alcohol, no caffeine.
Can't imagine.
Psychotropic, yeah.
Yeah, it takes an effort, like you said. Quite often we're just too lazy to apply that effort.
Yeah.
Very disciplined, has a very clean running system. As he says, his consciousness is his laboratory, so he's got to keep all the instrumentation dialed in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good role model for sure.
If I remember him saying too, like if you're serious about growing up, if you really want to evolve the quality of your consciousness, then you won't put psychotropics in your body, caffeine. You won't pollute your body with these things if you're serious about the quality of your consciousness. And I'm like, but I'm serious, and I still like drink and I just do all these bad things, but I am serious. He's like, okay, yeah, I'm serious. I want to grow up, but pass me the cookies. You know, like, come on.
But you're only human.
But I'm not only human. That's the thing. I'm consciousness. I'm a conscious being.
Yeah, you're connected to everything.
You're consciousness and you're human. How's that?
Yes. You're conscious living in a human figure.
Playing a human avatar.
Yeah, there you go. And you're here to learn and grow, right?
Yeah. I'm ready. I really feel like I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do the work, though. Like that's kind of where I am right now. So you guys hold me accountable. You'll see next week. Sugar free.
Never. I've like done a lot of that. Like I'm sugar free, caffeine free. You know, I'm free of a lot of stuff. I do have a glass of wine every now and again, but not terribly often. But mostly because my body bites me back. So I'm super clean less because, you know, oh, look, it'll help me with consciousness, but more because, you know, oh, I'll wake up at 3 a.m. with, you know, my heart racing if I have a piece of chocolate. Like, it's ridiculous, but it do feel a lot better on the other side in some ways. Although, you know, it's really easy to miss things like chocolate.
Yeah.
When you mean sugar-free, you mean you're not going to add any sugar to your foods. Is that right?
I'm not gonna eat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
I don't know.
no, you're sugar free. Like you don't add any sugar, but you like, will you eat bread and stuff that has sugar in it? Or? No, wow.
If I go to someone's house and they serve me, I eat so few things that I will, you know, I will eat stuff, but myself, I mean, it's been so long and I'm so refined. I've been doing it for so long that I'm pretty hardcore. And it's not, and it doesn't feel like, it's just like if you're someone that's like, oh, I don't really like pizza. It sort of feels like that. It's like, oh, I don't really eat that. It's not like, oh, let me read the label and see if I can have that. It's just like, I don't eat bread anyway. So I don't even have to check the labels to see if there's bread because bread doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah, it's just a natural tendency. It's just what you do.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or like my body's a hothouse flower. Like I'm just like super crazy reactive to things. I wish it wasn't true. It's not a good thing at all.
So Vanessa, how are you just doing the no added sugar, or are you giving up bread and pasta and like how far are you going with the no sugar?
Yeah, I'm giving up everything that has sugar in it. So.
Okay.
Bread and pasta, it converts into sugar, so you're not going to stay away from pasta, for example?
Oh, no, I am, because pasta has sugar. If you read the label, it has sugar in it. Yeah.
Right. So anything with carbs, basically.
Yeah.
No carbs.
I did it before, and I felt great. Yeah. I'm the opposite, so yeah, in that I put anything in my body. I can drink, I wake up, no hangover. Like I don't know, but it's not good because then I pollute my body because I don't see the side effects. And Tom's like, yeah, you don't now, Vanessa, but it's not going to be that way forever. Like you need to start doing it now because when you get older, you will see the side effects.
Yeah, well, I could do what you're doing when I was your age.
So on the sugar, if sugar is an ingredient like actual cane sugar, I'm not going to eat it obviously, but that would be the limitation, right?
Yeah, like I'll still have fruit and stuff. Sorry guys, I'm totally digressing.
No, that's good. We're just helping you clarify, or you are helping us clarify what you mean by sugar-free. So natural sugars are okay.
Yeah, fruit is okay. Not dried.
But I make my own bread sometimes, and I don't put any sugar in it. It's yeast, water, and flour.
Right, yeah, me too.
So is that something you would consume or not?
I'd have to, because I don't make my own bread. So,
Well, for one thing, it's really
Would you make your own bread?
Would I make my own bread?
It's actually really easy.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
But I guess the question I'm asking is, would you eat that bread because it has no added sugar, or would you still say no because it converts to sugar?
Yeah, because of the flour, I probably wouldn't eat it. But it's okay, guys. Don't worry.
I'll send you some recipes.
Thank
Ooh,
you.
there you
I would
go.
really appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe you can post it on WhatsApp as well, because I'd be keen on trying some of it.
Okay.
Cool. Okay.
I'll put my-
Okay, guys. So 242. We're on 242. Very last paragraph, second sentence, he says, the more awareness and complexity an individual entity or system creates through evolution, the more potential states and possibilities there are to explore. Learning, growing, and evolving are often an accelerating process. The actualization of a given potential gives birth to a greater potential that gives birth to an even greater potential that, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that to me is just really encouraging, that, you know, it helps me to want to learn more, because I know that the more I learn, the more that I can grow, and the faster that I grow. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like to do things fast. So yeah, that was encouraging for me.
Yeah, the more we learn, the more we know, the more we can learn, and yeah, kind of snowballs.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's a snowball effect. Anything else on that page? I kind of went right to the bottom. If not, then 243.
Well, I guess for me, and we have already touched upon it earlier, is that when he says we must learn very quickly how to guide our rapidly accelerating technical know-how with some hastily gained and applied wisdom before the opportunity to do so is lost.
Mm-hmm.
That that is both exciting and scary. Have this opportunity that we may or may not be able to, as a society or as, you know, human, to be able to take care of in time before we just sort of do ourselves in. And I did like the way he also talked about trying to halt or suppress innovation, discovery, and development. Like you can never do that. Groups have tried before to slow it down, and it just doesn't work. That's not the answer. So just putting, you know, making laws and regulations like you can't do this, you can't do that, isn't going to work. People will still do it.
Mm-hmm.
What we have to do is develop some wisdom around these technologies.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do we use technology to make it profitable for our own purposes?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That's why we have to grow ourselves. We can't change anyone else, right? We can't try to stop other people, but focus on what we're doing, improving ourselves. Anything else on that page before we go to 244? So how about 234 then? Anything on 234?
I had highlighted the quality of the individuals within the society defines the quality of the society's institutions. So it's like a chain, you know, we can go as fast as we want, but the people who have a lower quality is going to hold us back.
Yeah.
I want to highlight that, Daniel, which I hadn't. Where exactly?
The fourth paragraph down.
It says, before you begin lamenting the incompetence of your public institutions. So the next sentence after that.
Perfect. Thank you.
But I think that speaks to a lot of times when we feel that we need to make a change because that person's not good enough or that institution has a problem. And what we fail to understand is you can change people out, but you're going to get the same result, because if it's the quality of it's the quality of consciousness of the people that you're talking about. And if overall the average quality of consciousness is low, it doesn't matter who the people are, the institutions are still going to have bad outcomes, because it's the people who need to be improved, not the institution, not the system. It's the people. And that's where, there's all these, especially around politics, oh, this party's better, that party's better, this candidate's better. That it's the system is the system. It's because we as individuals don't have a high enough quality of consciousness, we're still going to keep having the same problems. We're trying to fix the system instead of trying to fix the people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's why even further in that sentence, I really like that sentence, or that paragraph actually, and he says, collectively the citizens of planet more or less get what we deserve. And further down he says, you individually are either an integral and active part of the solution, or you are part of the problem. There are no innocent bystanders.
Mm-hmm.
The onus is on everyone to substantially raise the quality of personal consciousness. So going back to what we just said, it's up to us to improve ourselves, to grow our own quality of consciousness. We can't fix or change anyone else. We can only work on ourselves. What we can.
The next sentence too, compelling a solution by the application of external force is usually counterproductive and never a good long-term solution. And it feels like as a society, that's what we try to do. We try to compel these changes and these solutions through these external, through these external things, rather than looking at, hey, we're the problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a saying that you're the average of your 5 closest friends, right? And for me, the way I look at it is, if I want to increase a greater awareness or create more knowledge, I have to let go of certain people that are holding me back. So I have to find people that are more knowledgeable than I am, and so I can learn from them. And as I learn from them, I'm gaining more knowledge, and therefore, on the whole, my level of awareness or wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, has increased. So therefore, the whole system has increased by a little bit. So if everyone does that, the whole system increases.
But that
isn't it important for you to be with people that are less knowledgeable, so you can play that role for them and thereby increase?
I guess it works both ways as well, right?
It works both ways. I think so. And I think that's the, that's the thing. To me, this also is that, compelling or forcing the solution isn't the right, but we can still inspire. And which is why I think it's really important, whether it's as a parent, as a manager, as a president, is that, you have to bring people. You can lead, but you have to bring people. They have to come with you willingly. You have to persuade rather than force.
Yes.
And particularly as a parent, which is the most personal application of that, that's the tricky part. Because when they're little, you can force. You're like, you brush your teeth, that's it. You brush your teeth. As they get older, you have to start to build the muscle of persuasion more and inspire them and accept when you're, extremely persuasive wisdom is not yet working. But I think that's where, so I think it's extremely crucial that we get leaders that inspire and persuade and are able to lead.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's not like there's not a role for leaders. It's just there's not a forcing hammer, like this is the way it's going to be. There's got to be able to persuade and inspire. And if you do that, then we can collectively lift together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and recognizing that everybody has different modalities, different ways of being persuaded and inspired. I was just looking on the fireside chat. They have one tomorrow, and I was looking at some of the questions. And one of them, Adam asked, Tom, what do you think about, and Adam's been part of Tom's group for a long time. And he's like, what do you think about like tough love? Like how like people who like beat the quality of consciousness out of you, and that are just really hardcore. And some people need that. Like some people like that, and that's the only way they're motivated is by having to kind of be like a drill sergeant. Whereas some people just need that really gentle approach. So it's each their own, right? And then finding what works for you and going with that.
Totally.
Yep.
That's totally right. What are fireside chats?
Oh, fireside chats. They have them like once a month where you can go online on a video call just like this and ask Tom questions.
Oh,
yeah, it's like.
Find this. Is it on his website?
I'll send you Oliver. Oliver is the admin for it. I'll do like an email intro, and then he'll include you on the monthly emails that he sends out, letting people know when the next one is.
Awesome.
But they have a bunch of them that you can watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
Past ones that they've recorded. So they record them, and then you can go back and watch them.
So they're always on Sundays. So the next one is actually tomorrow, Sunday, from 11 to 2. They're 3 hours long.
3 hours, wow.
Yeah, they're fun.
So in order to be part of that group, then an invite only thing, or how does?
Yeah, that's right. That's no, I'm kidding. I'll send you I'll do an email invite for both of you guys. Anybody else who wants it too. Yeah. Okay, cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'll
Very
send
cool.
that after we get off the call. So anything else on the stage?
Sometimes it's better to let other people make mistakes and learn from them. It's not always best to try to correct everything and everyone, forcefully or otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
First sentence of the last paragraph. The non-physical mind can change, grow, evolve more quickly than the physical body because it contains more degrees of freedom and fewer constraints. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. Pretty much no constraints on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the physical is the constraint. Gravity, pressure, thermodynamics.
Yeah. Okay, so over on the next page, anything there?
Nada.
Nothing on 245?
Nothing for me.
Okay, just looking at the time, it's almost 9, so let's move along then. Page 246. I don't know, just I thought it was pretty interesting, the first paragraph there, where he's talking about how humanity has evolved an extraordinary potential that is primarily fed by an impressive array of second-order consciousness functionality. So then he's talking about the analytical functions, and then he goes on to say, well, perhaps there are fourth, fifth, and higher order functions that we can't even imagine. So for me, that just expanded my imagination to be like, wow, yeah, what else is there? We've got this strong analytical ability, but there's so much more. And so where I go with that is probably, telepathy, communicating that way. Yeah, all these things that we practice at the immersives, the remote viewing, all these things that most of us don't really imagine to be true.
Is that what he means by second order consciousness, the remote viewing and remote healing?
Well, second order consciousness is our analytic function, so our ability to think and comprehend and make choices. And then he's saying, but then there's more, there's perhaps there's fourth, fifth, and even higher order functions that we can't imagine.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard stories of people sleeping and putting a book under their pillow and absorbing the knowledge overnight.
Supposedly Edgar Casey could do that.
Okay, there you go. Another cool thing I heard of at my retreat at the Monroe Institute was that there was an individual that, what was he doing? Oh, it was out-of-body stuff, and he was helping his son. Yeah, it was one of the guides, facilitators, that was the word. one of the facilitators of the class, and he had taken like an information packet from the Akashic records or something like that to his son, and somehow given it to him, and his son absorbed it, and it was either the next day or within a couple days of this process, like knew a different language or something.
Wow.
Huge, like that, real significant. He had absorbed all this information that way, rather than the old traditional method. So I kind of thought that was along the lines of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and for sure. I heard Tom talk about it too when he's exploring the larger consciousness system. They don't communicate like this. They don't use words. They don't speak. It's just this kind of download, this impression of information that you get all in like one moment. You just get this information. And yeah, it's not articulated the way that we do.
Yeah, it's called ROTE, R-O-T-E. It's a thought bubble. Compress it, a whole experience, pass it over, and then you open it up and you experience it from their point of view.
That's the way Bob Monroe talked about it. That was the descriptive, that was the term he gave for it, yeah.
Yeah, Bob's term, which is more term than we've got for it, so that's what I go with.
Yeah, imagine the possibilities. Further down, the third paragraph, last sentence, or second to last sentence, he says, we cannot even vaguely imagine how far beyond our comprehension AUO's possibilities are. So just getting outside of our little mind space and really opening up to possibilities. We can't comprehend it from our limited perspective as these human avatars. Anything over on 247? Oh, I skipped right past 246 and how he talks about fun and playing, how important that is.
Well, I think on 247 too, he says if having fun wasn't profitable to big picture consciousness evolution, it wouldn't come so naturally or be so popular. So I guess we shouldn't forget that part of our experience.
Right. Yeah, and I kind of mirrored what you guys are saying too. I had underlined on 246, just for fun does not imply useless, or that no evolutionary profit is produced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so have fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Lighten up. For sure.
Nothing else. If you're not having fun, it's hard to, have the bandwidth to do the work.
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, if you're not having fun, it's hard to have the bandwidth to do the work. Like you need to have some fun.
Right. Yeah, you gotta have some space within yourself.
Burn out.
Yeah.
And I think as you grow and evolve too, your idea of what fun is changes. That also evolves as well.
Sure.
It totally does. Yeah. Whereas in the beginning stages, it could be fun at other people's expense, making fun of people. But then as you grow and you become more compassionate, you realize that that's not fun.
Well, when I was a lot younger, fun meant going out and drinking and, doing things that perhaps weren't very smart.
Right. Yeah.
And thinking about that now, it's like, in no way at all would I have fun doing the things that I did, 30 years ago. I wouldn't. So, just even outside of this work, as you grow and evolve over time, I think some things change.
Definitely.
It certainly changes even exponentially more when you are doing this work.
It does.
Part of that, I think, is also because it reflects whatever lessons you need to learn. Like some of the things you're doing when you're young, that's exactly what you should be doing because you're learning certain kinds of lessons. And then once you've internalized some of those lessons, then all of a sudden, if there's that evolutionary pressure of self-improvement that Tom talks about, then you're going to seek out different opportunities that are speaking to whatever lessons you need now.
Right.
So 247, the very last paragraph where he talks about avoiding the anthropomorphic temptation, because we often think that AUO is something like us, but he's saying it's not like us at all, although we may be a little bit like it. I don't know. I liked that because I cringe a little bit when I hear people talking about God being, you know, this being, this man with white beard and all that. I'm like, well, no, it's not like that. But I also understand that helps them to have a personal relationship with the larger consciousness system, and if that works for them, then that's positive, right?
Maybe the best they've got at that time, most they can wrap their head around.
Yeah, exactly.
Their imagination allowed them for.
What's that?
That's what their imagination at that time allowed for. Now
Right.
we can expand our imagination because of the
Yeah.
computers and what they, you know, like all the progress that has been achieved over the time.
Yeah, totally. I have this picture of in one of our groups. It's like Jesus, Krishna, and Buddha, and they're like all holding hands, and then it says, "We're here walking each other home."
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some similar things with the tapestry of all the different religions woven together, or something like that. You know. Yeah, different thought processes and different continents coming together, having that common theme. It's cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
We can't all just get along, you know.
Absolutely, we can.
Why not?
I think what's crazy to think about is the fact that maybe, what if all those entities were the same consciousness, just over the course of history, the same consciousness sort of coming back and playing this different avatars.
Could be.
You know, the same individuated unit of consciousness.
It's the same how you'll see. It's how we see things, how we perceive it, right?
Right. It is.
And could it be that the different religions and different environments has created that?
Could be, yeah. Absolutely. So, guys, we have 25 minutes for the last chapter. Oh, the last chapter is really short, but
yeah.
Evolution. Oh, wait, sorry. Did I skip? Was there anything else from chapter 29?
Nope. I don't think so.
Well, I don't know. Sorry, from the last page of chapter 29, the first sentence, the first paragraph, last sentence on page 247, he says, in fact, the more sentient we become, the greater our quality, the more important our internal environment becomes to our evolution. So I like that, because that's the one thing that we can control, and is our internal environment. No matter what's happening outside of us externally, our internal environment is what we have direct control over. So he talks about, the greater quality that you have, the more important that is. So again, I guess bring it back to that mindfulness, that awareness of what's going on inside of me. How am I choosing to react to the situation? What is my response? It's my responsibility.
Right.
That introspection, right? That being introspective.
What's that?
That ability to be very introspective and to look at oneself. Yeah, that's really important. And I don't see it that often in society. And when I do hear somebody speak about being introspective and asking themselves, why am I choosing to see it this way? I'm always in awe when I hear people talk like that. I'm like, wow, get it, like they're on the fast track towards growing up.
Right.
Because the default, the norm is always to be like, oh, they're like this and they're like that, and to be pointing the finger. And I always tune out when I hear that, but when I hear somebody speak accountably, I'm always just like, I perk up and I'm like, wow, I want to be their friend, Like those are the people I want to surround myself with.
Yeah, it's kind of rare to even hear a flicker of what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, I heard it. We had a gathering at Bojena's house, and there was a new lady who came, and she was speaking that way. That's why I actually reached out to her, meeting her for coffee next week, because it's such a rarity to meet people like that.
Right. I had that same sentence bracketed too. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So chapter 30, first page, anything there? Nothing on the first page?
So for me, I guess I realized that I was making like a mental mistake when he did this first paragraph, when he's talking about how, there's the AUO, but then there's non-physical material reality, and there's all these subsets of non-physical material reality. Because I think I was almost equating non-physical material reality with AUO, and I was like getting confused. And so when he was talking about, look, there's AUO, and then there's all these, different subsets of non-physical material reality, I was like, oh, okay. And it kind of snapped into place that I was making that kind of hazy confusion.
Right.
I mean, I'd never like directly thought they're the same, but when he separated them, I was like, oh, the difference between the two was blurry for me. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah. It really just made me have this bigger understanding. It just made me see our place in the totality of all that is. Oftentimes when I'm just driving or if I'm walking on the street, I'll look at other beings, other avatars, and I'll be in awe, and I'll be like, wow, 7.5 billion of us on this planet. Like, I really need to get out of my little head here. Like, what's going on in my world is not that big of a deal, girlfriend. Like, look at the big picture. And then when I read this, I'm like, oh my God, look at the really big picture. Like, there's so much more going on than this tiny reality. So yeah, that's what it made me do, is expand my understanding, or my horizon, my perspective.
Yeah.
How about over on the next page, 250?
Cool.
So I don't know, the last paragraph, I just highlighted that because he was talking about the absolute unbounded manifold, how AUO then evolved into this and that he says that, so basically is one into many, right? So it went from this oneness into many, and that was into many. So yeah, he just says is a more complex, lower entropy manifestation of AUO. There's no new substance. But I don't know, I just kind of like that because it sums it all up. Basically what is the more complex, lower entropy manifestation of one into many. And then over on the next page, how he says that on the very top there, a digital information system that forms the superset of our potential reality and existence. For this reason, is sometimes referred to as larger consciousness system. So then it's giving us the heads up that it will be interchangeable throughout the book. So sometimes the LSC, or sometimes LCS,
Right. The larger system of consciousness.
Yeah. Anything else on that page?
I guess in the 251, we're in the middle. We live at the dawn of a potentially explosive evolutionary and cultural transition. The pace of change is dramatically accelerating. Ahead lies a unique and powerful potential for an incredible accelerated progression, regression, or self-destruction.
Yeah, what to take in.
Yeah, it's almost like last week when he talked about, you know, the next 50 years determines our next 500 years.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
A lot happening right now, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that paragraph. He goes on and says, after 250 years of the industrial age comes the genetics engineering, cloning, psychotropic drug, computer network communications, digital information age, all at once. Oh, geez, get ready. Yeah, it is. It's like all at once, you know?
I'll be alive.
That?
And I think it's driving a lot of fear. I think people feel it,
That's why a lot of anxieties
you know?
so fast for too many people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's going to challenge all the systems that we've established for ourselves to create order. Like jobs. Like robots are coming for everybody. They're going to be able to do surgeons' jobs. You know, right now,
Yeah.
it's manufacturing workers in society is sort of like, you know, I feel like, or a lot of society is like, oh, that's them, not us, and that's just that. But it's coming for everybody.
Yeah.
That was
Commercials give me anxiety. I was seeing something last night that was, I don't know if it was anxiety, but it was just, you know, wow, what you guys are, you know, what we're talking about. A tattoo artist was doing something on a stencil, and then somewhere else remotely there was a robotic arm with a tattoo gun, and a woman was, you know, laying on her chest and having a back tattoo done.
I was watching an older episode of Ancient Aliens yesterday, and
That's a
they
good
had something like that, and then they were talking about in Saudi Arabia, they've given citizenship to the first robot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. And I said, well, why? They asked why they were doing it, because, well, it's inevitable, they said. So why not be the leader in that?
Wow.
And then in that episode, they also talked about how Facebook had created, had allowed 2 chat boxes, robots, to talk to each other. And they started to create their own programming language that the Facebook programmers had no idea what they were doing.
Oh wow.
They got scared and they turned it right off.
Really?
Yeah. So it's how these robots now they have a mind of their own. They talk in a way that's more efficient than us. And we had no understanding what they were doing.
Wow.
So imagine we let these things go wild, and, you know, what are they going to do?
Well,
Yeah.
Tom talks about that later in the book about, you know, AI. Consciousness is not just for us as physical beings, but it can happen they can at some point become sentient as well.
Yeah. So it's a matter of, are we going to coexist with them? Are we going to be able to use robots or artificial intelligence to create a more profitable life for us, or are we, or is
Terminator.
yeah, exactly. Or is it going to be destructive? Right? I guess time will tell.
But how different are they from us if we're digital? Like, didn't somehow, you know, there was, I don't know who it was. I think I may have even found it on one of Tom's website or something, where they had this whole, they were trying to explain digital realities. And they were saying, as computer games get more and more highly detailed and highly structured and realistic, look at what's just happened in the last 10 years in terms of the reality component of the digital. Who's to say that in 100 years, those we couldn't program in consciousness or morality or lack thereof into the players in a digital reality, and at what stage do they sentient.
Mhm.
I'm not sure we have 100 years though.
I think
Not
it
for
might be
us.
faster.
No, I mean, I don't think it's going to take 100 years.
Oh man, that's dark, Suzanne.
Yeah, probably not.
Perhaps I watched too many science fiction end of the world movies.
I think even though we're a digital reality, we've created another digital reality that's way more advanced and that can process things much faster than we can.
2 or 3 decades, probably, right? And I think I agree with Tom's point, which is that artificial intelligence, we create a computer, and I mentioned that I was starting to see some evidence of that in a couple of my devices last week. Anyway, it's that consciousness, like you or I, we could sign on to that as an avatar, just connect with that machine as an incarnation. We could sign on to it. Anybody else heard Tom mention that? So that makes sense to me.
No, but I think that goes back to what he was talking about in the last chapter of this is where we really quickly need to develop some wisdom because we have the technology to perhaps start creating these AIs and we don't know where that's going to go or what the outcome will be. And so just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do a thing.
Yeah.
That's where we're just progressing so fast technologically speaking that we have for at least for the average person a rather lower quality of consciousness. Those two are not a very good mix.
Mhm.
So and that's where the whole next 50 years will be very telling. Technology continues to increase exponentially, yet people are only increasing the quality of their consciousness not exponentially, incrementally.
Yeah, it's way out of balance.
Yeah, and also again, the more we know, the faster we grow. So we can take that leap. We can take that accelerated path towards increasing the quality of our consciousness. And if we don't, on page 252, the third paragraph in the middle there, he says, of course, digital consciousness does have some advantages over biological systems. If the resulting cumulative probability assessment goes negative, it can always save previous states and then punch the undo or reset while retaining lessons learned. One of those cool digital tricks that make carbon-based systems envious. So there's no need to worry. It's not all for nothing, guys.
Just hit the reset
we know we're on our 5th version anyway,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I really love the top of page 253. And then that aside there, he says, so pay attention to this dude and discover how to operate your consciousness fully. It would be a shame for your consciousness to sit there idly flashing zeros in its display for a lifetime because you never bothered to learn how to use the control. I love that because it's just connecting us with what we really are, conscious beings playing in this virtual reality. And it's our responsibility. Once we know this, then it's our responsibility to understand how consciousness works and what we can do with our consciousness. And if we don't, then that's our bad that we've just wasted that potential. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much more fluid than we think, and all these apparent limitations are self-imposed.
Yeah, exactly.
And be kind to your phones and your computers and your machines. Go with the love. Always go with the love. I notice a substantial difference in the operations of my phone. Not this phone, the last phone, most definitely, when I was kind to it. When I said, oh, thanks, because people are always yelling at their phones, getting staticky and nasty, and I know that's a negative, scratchy, that's M-band noise, right? Mind band noise. But if you take a moment just for kicks and say, oh, you're a good phone, thanks for helping me, good job today. It does so much for you.
Well, I'm sure with Google and how they record everything. I'm sure if I ask Google right now certain things, they will recommend things for me as well based on my behaviors and habits, which is kind of scary at times. It knows you better than you know yourself.
Yeah. I've heard a lot on this conversation about it's scary, what's happening is scary. It's not scary, guys. It's the fear inside of us that gets
True.
It's never the stuff that's happening. It's we have to get rid of our own fear, and then it no longer is scary. It's not,
How can we use this technology to improve our lifestyle?
Yeah, to improve the quality of our consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah, or, can we accept that if we create, the destruction of civilization, that may be a necessary step. I think that's it. You can't kind of pretend it's not possible, but you have to kind of accept the possibility as potentially the step that will help us learn and grow.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the very end of this chapter, he ends it by saying, experience is the best teacher. And that may very well be our experience, and it will teach us something. If we destroy this planet, this reality, well, we'll learn not to do that next time we get a new reality.
Perhaps, right? Hopefully.
It's very, I understand the concept, and it's very easy to go, oh, they'll just press the reset button, or we'll just learn from whatever experiences we get. But those experiences are likely to be extremely painful and very difficult to live through. So it's the reality that you would face that it could be not a pleasant time for quite a while for a whole lot of people. And that's where I guess for me it becomes harder to deal with.
Well, I'm just kind of thinking that I just have to trust that the largest consciousness system is so wise that it's going to be leading to the best possible, results anyhow.
Yeah.
So no matter how difficult it may get, it's going to be better at the end always.
Yeah, and it's that attitude. Your personality creates your personal reality. We all kind of live in our own little worlds, right? But it's ultimately the same shared reality. How are we going to perceive it? How are we going to interact with it, engage with it? It really comes down to ourselves. And it is true that you're right. The LCS, the system is set up for us to succeed. It wants us to succeed, so it will assist us and help us in any way that we need.
But we still went through the Middle Ages and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that part of the process isn't necessarily dark times.
Exactly.
Yeah, and even if you look at your own life, right, and the microcosm, we experience death, we experience divorce, we experience a lot of things that can be looked at as, oh man, I didn't want that to happen. But it happened, and I learned so much. And if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have learned how to love. I wouldn't have learned compassion. So we need all these things that seem like dark times or seem difficult. That's where the growth occurs, outside of the comfort zone. Well, guys, it is 9:25. Is there anything else that you wanted to share from that chapter before we go into the closing circle? Okay, well, if there is, we'll share in the closing circle. So, yeah, let's wrap it up with any maybe final thoughts or insights that you want to share. Share it now before we wrap it up. Let's go in the same order we started. Dean, you want to start?
Sure. So I guess in conclusion to these couple of chapters, time is fluid and flexible. Reality is fluid and flexible. This is my takeaway on it anyway. Don't imagine limitations for yourself where there really aren't any. Yeah, and good hanging with you guys.
How about you, Suzanne?
I think for me, there's many times I just come back to the same conclusion that, you know, I can't really change the world. My focus has to be on improving my quality of consciousness and perhaps helping those, you know, in my sphere of influence, you know, kids, grandkids, friends, whatever, and that hopefully is they grow their quality of consciousness and they help more people. So I guess it always reminds me that I have so much more to do, and that I have to continue to make progress in that. Although I haven't gotten to the point where I'm ready to give up sugar.
You never have to.
It's a choice, right?
Yeah.
It is a choice, and I mean, intellectually, it's like, yes, I should do that, and I should. It's not there. So it's interesting to see how it goes.
I will keep you posted.
Suzanne, don't shoot all over the place.
Yeah. Bojana, what about you?
For myself, it is comforting to know that I don't have to understand it all to still have a happy life, you know, do my best and understand only as much as my limitations allow me to understand, and try to, you know, like read the book further. Maybe more clarity will be given to me in further chapters. I'm still confused about a lot of things, but you know, like it's always better. I always feel better after this meeting with you guys. Thank you.
Awesome.
Daniel?
What everyone else said, I reiterate that. It's
You're here.
hey.
Well,
For me, I just feel psyched that we're getting to the end of book one. Like that's like we've done a lot of foundation building, and I think there's going to be I mean, from what Tom suggests is going to happen when we get through this part, there's going to be a little bit more of, you know, okay, how does this apply to us personally? And so we'll get a break from all this, you know, foundation building. And I've enjoyed it, but I'm looking forward to the next phase as well.
Yeah.
yeah, same here. Yeah, I just love this. It's such a great start to the weekend. Meeting with you guys, you know, hanging out in my PJs with my tea and talking about the nature of reality and big picture concepts. Like, I love it. It's a good good opening to the weekend. It helps me keep things in perspective and remember and stay true to my intention. So I'm thankful for this. I really, you guys, support that we give each other. Thank you so much. And next week will be chapter 31. So chapter 31 is about 20 pages. Yeah, we'll just stick with that one chapter.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you,
guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Enjoy the
Bye.
weekend.
Lots of love.
Hey, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Guys.